Morning, my name's Mark Brunton. I'm the Ops Section Chief for the Park Incident. I'll be giving the daily update for August 6th. In the past 24 hours, we've seen some significant fire activity on our fire. The past few days, due to the weather conditions, have mitigated and not been very intense. We've been able to go direct on our incident, put in a lot of good direct control lines, and create alternative and contingency lines, and have a lot of success overall in our fire. I'll go throughout the entire incident, tell us where our successes have been, and then our current and future challenges with the incident. On our left flank of the fire, the west part of the fire, as we move our way around, it's been very static and consistent in the fact that we've had the direct control lines. We've had heavy mop up in those areas and patrol, and it's been very good progress within that. In fact, a lot of the areas on that left side of the fire, we've moved into our fire suppression repair activities. And those suppression repair activities is basically returning those control lines that we've put in into more of a natural state in which when the winter comes and there's heavy rains and so forth, that we don't have the erosion problems or any destruction to the land. So that's been going on and is starting to go on throughout the rest of the fire in areas that we've gone in, done the actual suppression and mop up, and then returning it to where we were before the fire started. As you move up into the top of the fire, the left shoulder and the top of the fire, again, really great successes. One area that we've had that has been a bit of a nuisance for us is the one area that's fingered up near the Highway 36 corridor, just due to the heavy fuels in that area. And the topography. It's been very difficult to battle and to control and to mop up. So it's been very resistant to that. Yesterday, we did have a lot more success with that, and we didn't have to use as much help from our rotary, our helicopters, to help the ground troops in suppressing and keeping that cool down. Still a lot of heat in there, still a lot of work to do in there, but we are gaining throughout the past shift or so, and we continue to see success in taking care and buttoning up that part of the fire. As we move around the top and down to the right shoulder, now we're starting to go into our challenges. Yesterday, late afternoon, as was anticipated, we were going to see an increase in fire behavior. We've had fire that has been established in the Mill Creek drainage over a number of days, and we do know that that has been a challenge due to the fact of the topography, the heavy fuel loading, and the fact that we were not able to insert ground personnel into that area due to the topography, very dangerous country to work in, and with the fire just basically percolating and down in that drainage. So we've been developing plans over the past number of days on how we were going to take care of that challenge and that drainage. What we were doing is putting some control lines along the rim of the on both sides of that drainage, that large gorge, if you will, and then developing a plan in which we could go far upstream in that watershed and put a direct line across and creating, in essence, a box. From there, our plan was to go and do a very low-intensity burn operation. We were expecting that the weather being hotter and drier, setting itself up much like when the fire first took off well over a week ago. We were concerned that the conditions would be such that the fire would become more active. Yesterday, however, it late afternoon started becoming more and more active. We started having situations where firefighters were having to take refuge in areas, what we call TRAs, temporary refuge areas, so that the fire could bypass them, not create any harm to our personnel, and then re-engage on that. Throughout that yesterday, there was damage to one of our fire suppression dozers, and some minor injuries that were treated and taken care of. After that fire has gotten into those areas, it did not go beyond our alternative control lines, and our firefighters re-engaged throughout. As the afternoon and into the evening, that fire intensity increased dramatically. We started seeing a lot of spotting conditions, and mainly within the Tehama zone in our Branch 15 area. And so that Turner Mountain Loop, in all that country up there, that's where we started seeing a lot of challenges. Folks engaged throughout the afternoon through the evening, picking up those slops and spots. and they had a very active firefight on their hands. On the opposite side of the drainage in the Butte zone, they were seeing the fire challenging their primary line. It did, and did cross in a couple areas, and they were able to back off to their alternative lines. Again, engage much like the other zone and pick up those spots and slops. They were able to realign their plan as well as on both sides and both zones, and start working on taking their alternate lines, which now are becoming more of a primary line, and creating a new plan on how to combat the fire. So on the Tehama zone, that alternate line basically started using the road systems that existed. We're working in sections 3, 4, and 5, working back down towards the drainage. There is what's known as Big Bend. It's a bend in that creek drainage, and that creates a lot of challenges with us because of the natural wind that does occur there. It does become a bit squirrely and is not as predictable as we would like it to be through other parts of that drainage. So that is a challenge. The other challenge is, as the personnel work from the Tehama zone on that line working back down towards the creek, they need to connect with the Butte zone, and the Butte zone working from their end, working down to the drainage. To align those two lines properly, and while using fire as a tool to eliminate the main hostile fire from our control lines and give us a buffer, that is a very tricky operation, and takes a lot of coordination, a lot of expertise. Fortunately, with our line leadership and our resources, we have that leadership, that expertise to pull that off. And so they are diligently working, communicating together, and planning so they can bring those two lines together advantageously. So they're working against a lot of challenges with the weather conditions, the fuel conditions, the topography, to make that operation go as smoothly and safely as possible. So that's the big focus today in those two branches, is making that connection, which would then seal off that drainage from any other future eastern incursion of the fire. In between that, all on the Tehama zone, there is a lot of open area between that. So they are now taking that alternate line, then now squeezing it down to go more direct as they can on that fire that's spotted and is now burned together. Lots of plans being put in place, and we're always thinking that PACE model with that primary line, having that alternate line, contingency and emergency line. So that's always in our mind, and whenever we do the planning, and they're very successful. We've been successful even with these challenges thrown at us. The interesting thing about this fire and throughout, it's not been a wind-dominated fire. Typically, wind is one of the big precursors to the increased growth of any wildland fire. In this case, it's a fuels-driven fire, quite honestly, and topography playing into it. The wind that is encountered on this fire that the firefighters are feeling is actually created by the fire itself, and not by diurnal or external wind events. So that is a challenge. It's a fire that's creating its own weather situation, its own wind. You've seen the large plume-dominated smoke system, and with a plume-dominated fire, that is a very hazardous situation for our firefighters to deal with, because, like I said, it creates its own weather. The fuels are such that they've been very heavy, a lot of down dead fuels over many years that has not burned, and that plays into the intense fire activity that we've seen. So knowing that, and with the weather that is only adding to that recipe, the firefighters take that as an account as part of their plan. We will see that over the next day or so, because we are going to be experiencing for the next day or so some very hot, dry weather. And again, we're anticipating it, we're planning for it, we know it's coming, and that is part of our overall plan. As the week goes on, it will still be hot and dry, but that will moderate slightly from the extreme conditions we're seeing now. So that should give us a window for the fire to calm down a bit, and for our folks to implement direct action plans. So going a little bit depth there, but just wanted for folks to know and understand what we're facing, the challenges there, but what our plan really is and how we're going to tackle this head on. Moving on beyond our branch 15 and 18 on our right side of the fire, still more good news there. Those communities, Butte Meadows, Forest Ranch, Cohasset, all been repopulated. People are back in there trying to get to some sort of sense of normality again. We've had a lot of resources in there doing mop up and patrol efforts, much in the same as the Tehama zone, where we've been repopulating certain areas of the Paynes Creek and those areas. As people move back in, our resources are diligently working to put out hotspots, take care of any needs that the community may have as they encounter them, and that's going well. So we've got a lot of resources in there mopping up, making that safe, getting rid of those nuisance smokes that are out there, and hopefully be able to move on soon. We've got a number of assets that have assisted us, like I've mentioned before. We have our out-of-state resources from Texas, Utah, North Dakota, Arizona, Nevada that have been helping us. We have our Air National Guard and Army Guard units with the Rotary aircraft, a huge footprint. They've been very helpful with giving us those resources and assisting us. We have approximately 40 rotor wing helicopter aircraft, and yesterday when things started taking off, for a vast majority of the area, they were able to work and supported our ground troops. Our fixed wing aircraft, we flew and increased that amount of aircraft when the fire took off to assist us in the ground operations and gave the troops on the ground a little bit of more of a fighting chance to be able to engage directly as they could, or provide some buffering to our alternate lines. We're going to continue to plan our operation, get ahead of the power curve with what Mother Nature throws us. And we have a sufficient amount of resources at this point to take this head on, achieve the objectives, and achieve the mission.